Hi, this is John Jackson Miller, Star Wars author. You're listening to Coffee with Kenobi with Dan Z. This is the podcast you were looking for.
Vicky Vale.
Bruce Wayne.
And what do you do for a living?
Lieutenant, is there a 6-foot bat in Gotham City?
You look fine.
I didn't ask.
What are you?
I'm Batman. Winged freak terrorizes. Wait till they get a load of me.
This is James Arnold Taylor, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi. I have a good feeling about this.
Hello, friends, and welcome to Coffee with Kenobi. I am your host, Dan Zehr, and I am delighted to talk Star Wars and Batman today. More on that in a minute with you. Since May of 2013, I've been committed to creating a positive, family-friendly, spoiler-free place for our Star Wars community. Imagine walking into your favorite coffee shop and joining a lively discussion about Star Wars films, Disney Plus live action, animation, books, comics, collectibles, or Star Wars experiences at the Disney theme parks. I want to bring that sense of community to this podcast, my website, special events, live video experiences, email newsletter, and more. Join our Star Wars community at coffeewithkenobi.com and be part of something special. Thank you to the official travel partner of Coffee with Kenobi, MEI and MouseFan Travel. Check out coffeewithkenobi.com/MouseFanTravel for a no-cost, no-obligation quote, and also be on the lookout for that Disney Wish cruise that Coffee with Kenobi and MouseFan Traveler are going on. That's right, next summer you can join me on the Disney Wish, June 16th to the 20th. Go to coffeewithkenobi.com/DisneyWish for your no-cost, no-obligation quote and get your reservation in so you can join us on this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. On today's show, what a treat. I've got the amazing John Jackson Miller, author of so many wonderful Star Wars books, but now he is writing the novel, which is the sequel to the 1989 Batman film. It takes place between Batman and Batman Returns. It is spectacular, and I get to talk and actually I'm more listening to John discuss about this incredible movie and being a part of writing the legacy of this incredible movie and what it did to the culture. And here is a sequel that explains what the next chapter in that story is. So pull up a chair, grab your favorite coffee mug, and have some coffee with Kenobi. Joining us today for a cup of coffee. Look, this is really special. You know this guest. Every time he's on, we always talk about the first time he was on. It was a big deal for him. It was a big deal for us. I think his mom even listened to the show, which makes you really, really happy. But this, let's just reverse it. It's John Jackson Miller. John, welcome back to Coffee with Kenobi.
Hey, glad to be here.
So the last time you were on, we were talking about your latest Star Wars book. Each one is always a fantastic hit, beautifully written, great adding to the mythos. But now you're in something that is near and dear to my heart. We're going to talk about Batman Resurrection, and we can go so many places with this. But it's kind of nice. Look, yes, there's the book. It's kind of nice to put the lightsaber on the shelf. Don't worry, it's not going to get dusty. We're going to put on the cape and cowl. Talk to me before we even talk about the film or your book. What's your history with the character of Batman?
I grew up, probably the first place I was exposed to Batman would have been, the syndicated reruns of the 1966 TV show. And that would have been, when I was 7, 8, 9, it would have been on, and I certainly saw the Batman 1966 the movie that they had, not in the theaters, but I saw that, and I had this notion of Batman, and as being this campy character, and I did not really have any background in the character in the comics. I was really, more of a Marvel kid, because that's where Star Wars started. Batman was still, it had, they were trying to get some separation between the 60s and later. In the 70s, you've got new stories where it's sort of Batman the Dark Knight Detective is sort of the element, and as we get into the 80s, we end up in this area of time where comic shops are taking over. We no longer so much have to worry about the comics code, which had taken Batman and other characters and made them much more kid friendly back in the 50s. Batman began as really more of a pulp hero, much more violent character. Batman with a gun is not uncommon to see in the very, very beginning.
Which he had for an entire year, which is crazy.
Yeah, and so we get to the mid 80s, and Frank Miller does Dark Knight Returns for DC, and then would go onward to do Batman Year One, and then after that we've got Batman: The Killing Joke. So we've got this trio of stories that really have taken Batman completely out of the campy era, at least in terms of what was in the comics themselves, and then also on TV. The thing was, the general public did not know about that, and for years you would see newspaper articles that would say, Biff, pow, bam, comics are still being published, or something like that. Even when it was about a serious thing. Biff, pow, bam, Batman is much more violent in new novel or new comics or whatever. It was always couched in this sort of nostalgic recollection of the 66 show, and there was a certain amount of angst and worry and resentment within the hobby at that time, that the next time we got Batman, we'd better hope that it's going to be serious, because otherwise, it's just going to continue this thing for years on end. That one of our most interesting, darkest, characters is comic relief, and so that is one of the things that caused. In fandom, the magazine that I was reading at the time in high school and college, Comics Buyer's Guide, we were among the places that we were getting letters about, concern about, Tim Burton, who had done, Pee-wee's Big Adventure, and Michael Keaton, who was Mr. Mom and Beetlejuice and everything. And the concern was that he might not, these guys might not turn in a serious, presentation. I think even in the Buyer's Guide at the time, my later coworkers, Don Thompson and Maggie Thompson, who I would go to work with in 1993, and that's how I got into this business. They were very much of the opinion that no, wait, we give them a chance. We know Michael Uzlan, who is the producer, that's been trying to get the fan that's been trying to get these movies going for a long time. They had followed the gyrations of various different screenwriters and all of that, and I think anybody who had seen. I think Keaton was in Clean and Sober or something like that. Yep. Yeah. And so, there was very definitely that feeling that this could be much more serious an undertaking than you might otherwise be. So again, I kind of approached it with.
But you always liked Batman. You always liked the character of Batman.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, but again, it wasn't something where I had been a lifelong fan, or where I had ever in any way identified with the character before that. Certainly in the teenage years, I've got Peter Parker and Spider-Man, and Peter Parker and his sort of nightmare life that he has to deal with is as somebody pointed out on social media a couple of days ago. Peter Parker is a very clear influence on Zane Carrick from the Knights of the Old Republic series, where he's a kid who's in the wrong place at the wrong time and is doing his best, but things keep going wrong for him. That obviously is not Bruce Wayne. I think Iron Man was my other big character, and of course that would be the first series that I would first big comic series that I would write in the 2000s. And again, that's a much different vibe than Batman, because again he's got all the gadgets and he's got the knowledge and he's got all of that, but he's also Tony Stark with all of Tony Stark's baggage. In the arc that I wrote, I made him Secretary of Defense. So he's very much, everybody knows who he is. Everybody knows what he's doing. And it was a different kind of a thing. But no, with Batman, we get to the summer of '89 and I am, at summer session in college. I'm editing the Daily Beacon from the University of Tennessee.
Wow, he's got props, folks. You can't see him.
He's got props, and I assigned myself because it was a really slow summer. I was only taking 2 courses so I could graduate on time. We were really coming out 2 days a week, and I had a lot of spare time. And I was like, okay, I need to do something, and I assigned myself movie reviews, and the first one I did that summer, that was the real big summer with all sorts of movies. It was too late to do one for Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, but that was the summer where we got Star Trek V. That was the first one that I wrote. And then you also had other things that summer, Lethal Weapon 2, Ghostbusters 2, all sorts of other things. But here in the middle of this is Batman in June, and the
June 19th, is that right?
I think it's the 20. I think it's like the 23rd. And what's happening is, the ad campaign, which has started with the trailers dropping and the trailers just having the logo there at the end, and it really showing that this is. It's a darker, there's machine guns on the Batmobile. It's really showing fans, okay, this is a different kind of a take. And then the commercials, when they start running as well, are likewise, here's the Joker, cackling. We got Jack Nicholson. This is not anything like the old days. Cesar Romero, exactly. It's not anything like the old days. Where the henchmen would wear shirts with their names and numbers on them or whatever. So I went to the theater that day, the night of the opening, the sneak preview on that Thursday night. I went with some trepidation. I get there. It's the first time I have seen cosplayers at a movie theater. And that includes Star Wars and Empire and Jedi. There are people in Joker makeup. There are people. There was this group of people who must have known each other, I hope, that had this big black blanket with holes cut in the blanket so they could stick their heads through it as they draped it over the seats like one colossal cape. The music starts and there's just thunderous applause as it's going. And then we get, then it starts in earnest. We get Prince has the first words of the movie, "I've seen the future," coming across one of the boom boxes. In the opening, and then people are just spellbound, and they are animated. They're cheering, and then we get to the end, and it's just a shocking ending. The Joker's fate. is something we never, would have guessed would be in a film like this, based on what we had more recently seen, and the recent examples of superhero movies. You're pretty much limited to Superman 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 4 is the most recent one, and you're not really prepared for what's happening in this world that doesn't look anything like anything that we've seen before, because we've got Anton Furst's designs for the city, and Danny Elfman's music, and just everything, and then the acting is wonderful. And when we get to the end of the movie, and the camera is panning, tracking upward, looking toward Batman on the top of the tower, with the cape billowing as he sees the bat signal, and the music is climbing as it is. And I just remember, amid the thunderous applause, and cheering, I remember thinking at the time a line that I would use in my reviews, and later on in articles I wrote for Comics Buyer's Guide. I said that this movie has redeemed comics in the popular culture. It has basically not just brought Batman back, but it's brought everybody back. And if you look at all of the films that come out in the first half of the 90s that are responding to Batman 89 the same way that films responded to Star Wars in 1977, you've got Darkman matches sort of the mood and the violence. You've got the Dick Tracy trying to match it for art direction, also with marketing, because the Dick Tracy posters was just his head. It was just a symbol. The Flash TV show, likewise, just the symbol when they had that on screen on TV. The commercials for that in 1990. The Rocketeer, matching it for production design, set in a different time and place. That was the real 1940s, whereas we have this sort of mash of the 1940s and 1989 in Batman, which is really unique and kind of interesting. And it's something that made it interesting writing the book as well.
Sure.
And so yeah, I mean, we do have this. It's like it gave filmmakers and studios permission to get more daring. I think right before before Batman Forever takes Batman back the other direction like a pendulum. We've got a film in the summer of '94. And I'm there at the premiere of that at a comics retailer's got a sneak preview of the movie The Crow at an industry function that I was at in '94, and that's a film where you just say there's no way they would have made this movie without a Batman '89 back there. Basically giving permission for comic book stories to be real, be frightening, be disturbing, and be macabre. And so, we do have, as I say, the pendulum goes back, but then it goes forward again, and we get X-Men, Spider-Man, Batman Begins. We get these films taking us towards the MCU and the Nolan movies. And so I just, the way that I kind of look at it is that it is something where it changed, to a degree, it changed my direction in terms of, what I was going to be writing about or doing. Not immediately, because I made this side trip, because the Cold War had ended, and I went to grad school for Soviet studies for a couple of years.
But I think you may have said that.
I may have mentioned that, but I still had, in my clip file, I still had this, and so
these props are great.
So I still had that in my clip file from that summer. I still had an article that I wrote. The article that I wrote for magazine class that summer was bought by the Comics Journal, and it was run by the Comics Journal. And pretty much, if somebody real buys your article, you get an A. That you write for the class. And so I had that to come back to when I went into journalism again, and it helped me having done that work did help get me the job at the sister publication of Comics Buyer's Guide, which was Comics Retailer. And then that led to me writing about Batman '89 multiple times again, including I wrote for the 10th anniversary. I wrote a big essay on the Prince album. So it's
you know what? You've taken like 8 of my questions in one question.
This is what I do. I'm sorry.
Hey, no, do not be sorry. I could not be happier. It's one of the things I've always enjoyed about talking to you. I don't want to get sidetracked, but congratulations on winning the division yet again. We took your manager, didn't make a difference.
Oh, we're talking about the Brewers.
Yeah.
Well, I turned off the game that's on currently because it actually still matters. And I don't want to be responding to this because by the time this goes on air, or whenever this goes out, we'll be in October, and who knows what will happen.
So many things to say, and I just love hearing you talk about this. So for me, growing up, also reruns of Batman '66, I was mesmerized by it. I wasn't aware that it was campy because to me this was live action superheroes, right? Yeah. And later, for a brief amount of time, we had Lou Ferrigno's Incredible Hulk. Yeah. It was, I think, that one season of that fun Spider-Man live action thing, which you watch now is almost unwatchable. But at the time, we thought it was revolutionary. Yeah, the Electric Company, Spider-Man, it was great. And then, as you said, people just sort of assumed that was what Batman, that was what comic books were like. The late 70s, early 80s, we saw a renaissance. You had, Neil Adams and Denny O'Neil's wonderful stories and Jim Aparo's art and just, a cavalcade of terrific stories. Dick Giordano, all kinds of stuff. Even Mike Seglain had his hand in some Batman a little bit later too, which is really, really fun. But so it was great. And then you mentioned The Dark Knight Returns, but that and Watchmen, and I don't have to tell you, you're a comic historian, were so revolutionary at changing tone. It reflected sort of Reagan and that era of where we were culturally. Yeah. And as I tell my mythology students, that's what a good story does. It represents the culture. The culture influences the story and vice versa. They work together. So Batman was finally going to be made. And you mentioned the critiques and the criticisms, which I still laugh at because we still get that. We got it with Heath Ledger as the Joker. We got it unprecedentedly. Can you imagine
social media?
If Facebook and Twitter, MySpace were around, can you imagine what people would have said about Michael Keaton? Which I always thought, and I'm sure you'll probably back this up. To me, it was like, if you have a good actor, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Michael Keaton nailed it. And you said this so beautifully. There's nothing I have experienced in my life at a movie theater that was not Star Wars related. And I'll say it this way. The closest thing to experiencing Star Wars in a movie theater with the hype, the excitement, the anticipation was the first Batman 1989. I remember going to Kmart and buying the Topps cards, the bubble gum and the novel. And then there's this guy named Sam Hamm who writes the script, right? And then you see it and the trailers blew it away. MTV had that contest where you could win the Batmobile. You had to call that 900 number. I never won it. Spoiler. But it was so revolutionary, so intense. I just showed it to my son who's 11. I showed it to him in the summer. He was mesmerized by it. It still holds up.
And for that contest, they had Robert Wool as Alexander Knox.
That's right.
it just turned up on Twitter today. I'm like, wow, I have not seen that in forever. So
it left a massive, massive impact on me. I remember even going on the 4th of July to see it instead of seeing fireworks. It was like the 10th time I'd seen the theater. It was so good. So let's talk about Batman Resurrection. What was the impetus? I mean, having written a couple books for Lucasfilm and DK, I kind of know how the sausage is made, but not to the degree that you do, because you have done a lot of wonderful fiction. How did this first come across your desk?
Well, of it, I want to say first, there were two Batman, novels by Craig Shaw Gardner, adaptations, which are interesting in and of their own rights. I read them at the time they came out, and you could tell that they come from a different time in the production cycle, with some elements that are not actually in the movie, and that drove me to go out and try and find the scripts later on. Did
you use the novel? Did you read the novel before you wrote?
I used the novel. The novel actually has some elements that some character names, for example, that do not appear anywhere else, and I picked them up.
Cool.
So again, that's nothing anybody told me to do. So anybody in the world who thinks, oh well, there's this Burton Bat canon or something like that, that must include everything in these products, these particular projects. It can't work that way, because there are as with Star Wars, there are significant deviations between what's on the screen and what's here, but they do illustrate some things that we didn't see that probably still would be the operative explanations for things. But again, that's really all there was. And in the intervening years, I mean, there have been a lot of, comics novels. There have been comics novels, even back at the time. They tended not to be blockbusters. We did get a spate of, there's a Batman No Man's Land from Greg Rucka. So that's probably your first Batman hardcover novel, unless I'm wrong.
No, I think you're right. Yeah,
and that's there are other efforts like this, but the difference with them all is they're comics novels, and they're not movie novels or movie/comics novels.
How would you explain the difference for
I think it's a different energy level. We had all these novels for years that connected to characters that may or may not have been familiar to the general public. They were rooted in interpretations of the character in the comics. And in the case of Rucka's book there, it's literally, novelizing the comics. It's adapting the comics for No Man's Land. But you don't have something that taps into the biggest possible audience. And the biggest possible audience is always the movie audience. And it's simply something where I never even expected that there would be any opportunity like this. So for years, whenever I was asked, what franchise have you not done that you want to do, I never even considered asking about it. Mm-hmm. And what happened is, the night that my Star Trek Strange New Worlds novel came out, I got the offer to do Star Wars: The Living Force, working with Tom Holer, who I'd worked with on and off at Random House for years, and doing short stories mostly. And what happens is I'm about halfway through it, and he says, "John, I know you're in the middle of this, and it's going to be hard to work this in, but I have to ask, would you be interested in doing novels tying into Batman '89? And I know that you went to the movie 12 times. I know that you kept the ticket. Oh. I know that it's something that, is your startup time on it would be minimal. And I hadn't done any comics superhero work at all since Iron Man, almost 20 years ago. And at the time, I just didn't feel like I had anything new to say. I wrote Iron Man basically as a Tom Clancy novel. It was all a military science fiction thing. But this was something different because I had been inspired to, even my review back then, I ends with me saying, I have questions. There are elements in this movie. There are moments. There's dialogue. There's stuff that's happening here where I'm like, okay. And I would, later on, I would say, okay, yeah, this is just, a continuity error or a blown line or something like that just was, when it cut together, the film did, that we didn't know exactly what was going on. Not to give away anything that I, deal with in the novel itself, but just as an example, there's the scene when, the Batman has destroyed the chemical plant, and the Joker is escaping in his helicopter, and he calls out, Junior Merman in the air, missed me. And then he laughs and he says, watch me. And he just goes. And in the book, what he says in the script, which is, I'm going to kill 1,000 people an hour. And this is him setting up the, what's about to happen in the parade. But, they either cut that for time, or they were afraid that was going to, sound too bad, or that it maybe the microphones just didn't catch it right. But that's the sort of thing where, I was like, I never quite understood what that was.
I never understood that line. And I'm today years old, and I'm realizing I just went with it because I just didn't care, because it was Jack Nicholson. I was on such a ride, but you're right. It made no sense.
Well, and the Junior Merman in the air, that's a radio show reference. I didn't know that. Oh. Things like Joker coming to Vicky Vale's apartment, and showing up, delivering a box, shooting Bruce Wayne, and then leaving with a poem. That's sort of a non sequitur. The whole thing is, and what it was is they ended up cutting an entire sequence in which Batman would have pursued Joker, having taken her hostage on a cross-town adventure that would have taken it through, sites from the bicentennial, and also would have, I think he's riding a horse in part of it, and I don't know what they shot. If anything, I did read at the time that they tested the suit under lights, under natural daylight, and it didn't look good. And that's something that I play off of in the book.
Oh, fun!
I do get into that. That he cannot use the same kit, the same uniform during the day and during the night, which sort of explains our gray Batman, black Batman, difference that we've got.
Oh, fascinating.
In the armors. And so, but again, that's the sort of thing where there were enough things there that, again, when I was offered it and I said, okay, yeah, absolutely. The very first thing we did, one of the reasons that this opportunity came about, where it just was not, even in your imagination before, is we had the success of the Batman 66 comics that came out 15 years earlier. And I actually spoke to the editor of those in San Diego, probably like 2011 or whatever year it was. And I said, I think you should do Batman 89 comics. And I'd love to write them. And he said, yeah, you're like the 40th person who's told me that. And of course, but they didn't come about. They didn't come about until much later, in a different sort of marketing or different sort of licensing world, where we're able to license or sub-license just pockets of things from the publisher and or from the license holder. And so, the way has been paved here by Batman '89 and Sam Hamm and Joe Quinones, the artist. Joe, who did covers for my Knight Errant comics way back in the day, and for Star Wars. And then of course we've got Batman showing up at the Flash, and there's just clearly an appetite for this. It's clearly this is the right time to do something like this because everybody associated with it is still active more or less with some obvious exceptions. And just the notion was, all right, let's see what kind of stories we can tell. I wanted to, the very first thing I suggested is I want to address the questions that I had from way back when, and this also leads to me also saying at the same time, I would rather set my stuff. I want to hug the first movie. I want to be in a few months after Batman '89, there's 2-3 years here. We already know from Star Wars, you can cram a ridiculous number of stories in between two movies that come out 3 years apart. And I just sort of said, let me have that area there. That way, if there are folks that want to consider, Batman Resurrection in the same universe with Batman '89's comics, I'm not going to be stepping on their toes on anything because I'm deliberately avoiding some of the character elements that they took on. They're set well after Batman Returns. They've got Billy D. Williams as Billy D as Harvey Dent and as Two-Face. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to do that because they've done that. Right. And, it's not necessarily the case that this is one cohesive thing. I can just say that we tried. But the thing is, we've got projects here which are both in motion at the same time. We have done, some conferencing, but, one of those things you just never know. What elements will need to be reconciled. These are always it's always a moving target. Doing anything where you're trying to coordinate. In this case, it wasn't so much a case of coordination as I'm just going to do my best to try to not step on toes or anything like that. And make it possible for the reader, if they want to feel like, yeah, this existed, this version existed. If the reader wants to feel like, the comics also exist in the continuum of Batman Resurrection, that's fine too. But the real primary documents are the two films.
How much did you revisit, like literally pull up and live stream it on Max or wherever? Yeah. How much did you do that to kind of get yourself in that spirit? Or do you just listen to the soundtrack on loop? I know on your social media, you always got the Prince stuff going.
I had already memorized pretty much everything, having gone that many times.
Sure.
But it was necessary for me to make sure I saw what I thought I had seen. And so, for example,
you want to keep the tone the same.
Well, an early character that appears, one of the things that's cool about this is characters that are in Batman and in Batman Returns both appear. Both pictures appear, so you can see what Max Schreck thought about the Joker. You can see what various other characters thought. But I also wanted to bring in, because we're dealing with the aftermath at the beginning of what the Joker did, this traumatic event. And I wanted to bring in somebody who is representative of the Joker's crew. And the obvious choice was Lawrence. Lawrence.
Yeah.
Boom, with the boom box and the glasses and the mustache. And, a guy who never has a line. but everybody knows who he is. And
And now you put that song in all of our heads.
There you go, Party Man. Yeah, but the thing is, I'm like, okay, I believe he lived, but I need to go make absolutely sure. And yeah, it's clear if you watch the movie frame by frame that the only the only character up in the cathedral besides the Joker who takes a very long plunge is the boxer. Lawrence goes through the rotten floor, but we presume that there was another floor down there. And I needed that because I wanted to, have somebody to stand in for, the henchman, and this is kind of what's going on at the beginning of this novel. Is we have people looking for a leader on that side of things, and
sure.
And so, the novel, it's every bit as long as Living Force was. So it's
okay.
400 pages and change. And one of the things with it is, unlike say the adaptations where it's about half the size, and they all of that is taken up by just covering the gyrations of the plot. We don't really go deeply. Craig Shaw Gardner had his hands full just interpreting things that I'm probably sure he hadn't even seen at the time.
Right.
The visuals, interpreting that stuff. Because he would have been working from scripts. We have here a chance to get into the inner lives of characters, to get into the inner workings of Batman's operations, to get into the logistics of, what do you do if the Batmobile is not where you want it to be at the end of an adventure or at the beginning of an adventure? What does Alfred think about, Bruce continuing with this thing, even after we have this revelation in the movie that, Jack Napier, the Joker, killed his parents. And was there closure there, or was there not? And if not, why not? And what did Vicky Vale think? So these are all sorts of things that, again, we don't exist to explain, things, but we do tackle these questions as the novel goes along, where it's relevant and where it's interesting. I had a lot of fun with Batman, or rather Bruce and Alfred, in their sequences. Tom Holler and I, he's like, we could just do a whole book of them at the breakfast table, which, for Bruce is usually around 2:00 in the afternoon.
Right. He's like a teenager.
Because the interplay between them is so interesting. But also beyond that, I mean, I've got Commissioner Gordon and Harvey Dent both dealing with this new situation, both in town, and also, what's it like for them to actually work with a vigilante? Where are the boundaries between what what Gordon can call upon Batman to do or not? And certainly, on the legal side, Harvey Dent has got even more reason to be concerned.
Sure.
About evidence and various other things. Alexander Knox, again, the one character that I probably identified with the most when I saw the picture, because I was a wisecracking reporter too, or at least I intended to be. I got the wisecracking part down. I eventually got the reporter part. But basically, he has gone from being somebody who was chasing an urban myth to this is more or less now his beat. And, his beat depends on him forming some kind of a relationship, reporter source relationship with Batman, who wants absolutely nothing to do with it. And so we get into that early on, and we get into I think some really interesting territory with this book.
Fascinating. Well, I am still I'm looking forward to getting a chance to consume it for sure. Wait, was there seems like a dumb question to ask, but I'll just ask because I want to see what you think. Did you feel, I get this question, do you feel pressure to do blah blah? Like was there like a different, I won't say pressure because you're a pro, but was there a different level of excitement that you felt for this project compared to others, or do they all kind of work?
Yeah. I mean, obviously this was unique in my personal pantheon. It was something that had a tie in a way that, I mean, look, when I came in to do Star Wars, I didn't get to work on the Rolls Royce. I got to work in the safe space of the Old Republic.
It's fair.
Kenobi comes along 7-8 years later. I did not with Star Trek. I did get to write. I did get to write. The Enterprise crew and the Next Gen Enterprise crews. They were just lower stakes affairs because these were novels that came out in mass market paperback, and we would move on to being able to do Star Trek novels in hardcover, as such that my first Strange New Worlds novel being the first Strange New Worlds novel, that had more of a stakes thing to it in terms of I need to get it right.
Sure.
But no, I mean in this case, this just felt from the start as if you had thrown this at me 10 years ago, 20 years ago, it would have been too soon. But having done 3 novels, hardcover novels in a row, Star Wars, Star Trek, Star Wars, and now this, I think I've kind of leveled up to the degree that I can handle it, and it's just really a matter of getting the voices right, getting the feel of the sort of the macabre feel of a Burton picture right, getting the thematic feel of a Burton picture right, because everybody in this world, there's the Titans that are walking among us, and then there's everybody else.
Sure.
And the Titans are all broken, or wounded in some way, and that goes for Batman and Joker and Catwoman and Penguin all, they're clashing into one another on the rooftops and various other places. And their conflicts are playing out, on this citywide scale. And so, that's what I wanted to capture was, I have a character, we did reveal this, here just I think on Monday, with the first excerpt, that I have brought in, Clayface, and Clayface is the golden age Clayface, where we're dealing with the actor, and I worked to find a way to get his physical malady to fit in to the technological universe that we've seen in these 2 movies. There's no metahuman stuff going on in Batman and Batman Returns. Batman Forever, we start getting mind reading and
Sure.
and stuff like that. Don't get that in the Burton films, but you do have elements like we do see that there are chemical weapons like Smilex, and here's what they do, and here's how they can cause really fast changes in people. And that's all I ever need to have is something to hang something on, and then I can give this character a tragic arc, just like I give everybody a tragic arc, and he's not the only villain. There are other things going on. There are other phenomena happening. The back cover depicts the playing card that Jack Napier had with the line, "Funny thing about Jokers, there's 2 in every deck," which is true unless I think you're playing euchre, but I'm not sure. Anyway, point of the matter is, I once I felt like I was achieving that part, it got a lot easier. Matching the theme, matching the tone, matching everything else. And then the problem simply became one of, I almost never write on Earth. Star
that's
Wars,
true. That's
Star
true.
Wars, Star Trek, none of it is in present day Earth or even 1989 Earth. And this is 1989 by way of the 1940s. Batman has some computer technology. Alexander Knox has a tape recorder, but you've also got flashbulb cameras, and the fashion is much earlier, with the exception of again Bruce. He's got modern dress, or what was then modern attire. Sure. Vicky Vale also. These people live in a different world. I mean, look at Vicky Vale's apartment, which is a rental on a photographer's budget. Although she's clearly a famous model photographer, but even so, I mean, it's just this vast sprawling warehouse apartment, but my issue was like, okay, I need to find out. Just in what's in the excerpt there, I have Batman in an urban chase through town where he does not have the Batmobile. And so I'm having to figure out things like, how much do traffic signals weigh? And then there's other things like, I've got to learn about autopsies. I've got to learn about, fire, firefighting. There's a number of other things that, if I want to have this thing feel right, it does. And this is something where, the folks at Random House worked with me. One character's notes are shown on tractor feed paper.
Cool.
So again, it's something where, and of course we ended up doing physical advanced reader copies as well, even though the age of that is more or less done, because we wanted to kind of evoke that earlier time. So again, I'm really happy with the book and how it's been received by everybody who's read it.
Listening to Coffee with Kenobi, you are, with Dan Z, the podcast you're looking for. This is...
As soon as I get, I'm going to email you and share my effusive praise, because I have no doubt. I was so excited about it. I was so excited they were doing it. When I saw your name attached to it, it put it through the roof for me. I can't think of anyone better. Your enthusiasm as always is infectious.
I'll tell you, if I didn't get it, it would have been my own supervillain origin story, because I would have been envious and
Oh yeah.
Oh gosh.
Rightfully so. Well, it's gonna be undoubtedly a massive hit. It actually comes out in October. It comes out on October 15th.
That's right. And
my goodness.
We will be launching that at a bookseller event that evening at Barnes & Noble in Appleton, Wisconsin. I get on a plane the next morning to New York Comic Con, where I'm there for 4 days, both with Random House selling a book. Just found out that Michael Keaton is hosting SNL that weekend.
No way.
Across town. So I don't think there's any way on earth I can get tickets for that, because it just doesn't work that way. But it sort of has that sort of stars aligning kind of feel to it.
Yeah, this has to happen.
Yeah, and then
I'll call Lauren after this, and we'll try.
That'd be
it
great.
happen.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Then after that, I do a round of signings in Chicago, my first Chicago tour.
Oh, cool.
Of bookstores.
Well, you're right back in my neck of the woods.
Yeah, that's I got Barnes and Nobles, downtown, Oswego, Joliet as well.
Oh, cool. Well, are there any on a weekend by chance? Well, I could just.
Yeah, Friday. The October 25th, 6 p.m. That is Diversity Park, and near downtown Chicago.
Cool.
Barnes and Noble there. Saturday morning, 10:30, the 27th, I guess it's what it is, or 26th October. That is Joliet, and then the new store that's in Oswego. That's 3 p.m. that Saturday. And all of this is on my social media feed.
Absolutely.
And website.
Be sure to check that out. I will certainly include a link to that on coffeewithkenobi.com. John, thanks so much, buddy. It couldn't happen to a better guy. I'm so excited for you, so happy for you, and I can't wait to read this book and to see what's coming next.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or Lucasfilm Limited. It is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names, sounds, and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Coffee with Kenobi unless otherwise indicated.
This is the podcast you're looking for.
There's no one here.